Hello and welcome to another episode of Potpourri. I'm your host, Crystal Brockton, and today we have a very special guest with us. We have author Mrs. Ruth P Watson. Hi,
Hello.
How are you?
Hello, how are you?
I'm well. So happy to have you in today to talk to you about your two novels that you have and your latest, of course, that you've written, Blackberry Days of Summer. I know that you came up in Virginia, specifically Lynchburg, Virginia.
Yes.
And a little bit about your character. Your book is based in Richmond, Virginia. So was that kind of your inspiration, kind of where you came from is where she came from?
Well, I think my inspiration came from growing up in rural Virginia and being exposed to the country life, and then from there going to the city and leaving Lynchburg and going to bigger places. And in Virginia, of course, Richmond is our capital, so it's the bigger place. And so the character sort of starts out in Blackberry Days of Summer in Jefferson County. And in the early 1900s, there was a Jefferson County. Okay. And so it's fictitious to the story, but the county actually did exist at a point in time.
Oh, wow, okay.
And some of the characters are developed from probably some of the stories that I was told as a child by my grandmother, and just listening to old people talk, which you know you're not supposed to be doing. But because of it, I developed these characters. And sometimes I would hear stories, and the stories seemed to be intriguing, and I just wanted to put my own ending to the stories. So
Okay.
I toyed with this for a long, long time, and I eventually just took the time to sit down and write a book. And that book ended up being Blackberry Days of Summer.
Okay. So a little bit about your background. How did you begin the journey into writing? I know you said that you kind of used to listen to old folks talk and things like that.
Well, you know, I had a grandmother who was an avid reader, and she spent most of her time reading. I mean, after everything was done, all the tasks were done for the day, I mean, you could find her reading a book. And
My grandmother was the same way.
And your grandmother was the same way?
Yes, she was,
and
with
so,
dictionary in hand.
Yeah, so she forced me to read,
Okay.
but initially that wasn't what I thought I was going to do. I went away to school and I majored in chemistry.
Oh,
And
wow.
everybody was telling me, well, you know, you really should be in journalism. You should be in communications. You should be doing this. But of course, like every hard-headed young adult, I did what I wanted to do, and then I ended up being a business major, and that's what happened. But I always had this thing for writing, and I always liked to write, and I like to tell stories, so that's how I started. And when I decided to just do it,
Go with your passion and with your heart.
Yes, I did some querying and ended up being, so my story being selected, and it brought me to this place. And so I started writing for the AJC, and then I did, when I was in corporate, I did the NES Express, which was a network engineering newsletter.
Okay.
I wrote for them all the time, whenever there was an opportunity. And then I came out and I wrote for a little small newspaper in Virginia. Then I wrote for the AJC.
So you have
and then I went from
pretty
upscale.
colorful background in writing. You've written for. How was that kind of transitioning from print media into writing novels? Did you find that you liked one more than the other?
Well, you know, I still do print media.
Oh, okay.
I'm on the communications committee for my church, in which I write for their newsletter. And then for my sorority, I write
Which
for
is?
Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Okay. Great sorority.
Oh, yes, definitely. I tend to write, I'd write for them. I'm the journalist for my chapter.
Okay.
I'm on the
Awesome.
National Arts and Letters Commission for the national chapter, for the national organization for Delta Sigma Theta. So I'm continuously doing the things I enjoy doing. At one point, I was teaching some students, and I decided, oh, I wanted to do a documentary. So I did that too. So now I'm sort of coming into my own. It's taken me 30 years, which takes most people. I'm glad that most people can start doing with their passion early. I think it took me a while to decide to just focus on the things I enjoy doing.
Which is what life is all about. I'm glad that you came full circle after kind of traveling into corporate America and coming back and saying, you know what, this is my passion, this is what I want to do. Because a lot of people, they get caught up in that, and they get caught up in the money that they're making, and they never come back to their passion in life, and they kind of miss out on their creative side, if you will.
I think when you get caught up into doing something that you don't enjoy doing, it's almost like you're a square trying to get into a circle. You do it, and you work, and you do that every day, and you get pretty good at it, but it doesn't give you the joy that you would get from doing your passion.
So is that kind of what yanked you back out of that? Was like, you know what, I'm in corporate America, I'm making money, but this is not what I love.
Yeah, really, it's exactly that. Really. Recently, I went back and I said I'm going to do a project management position, which is what I ended up doing, a senior project manager for an IT company. And I love, you know, pulling things together. So that's the production side of me. But at the same token, I wasn't getting all I could get out of it because I couldn't use the creative side of me, which is the side that allows me to write and be creative and go places I can only dream about going, or do things I can only dream about doing.
Right.
So that sort of brought me back to what I enjoy doing most. So now I'm sort of cultivating my skills and writing more.
And you probably become better over time, too, even like venturing out into all the different mediums, magazines, newspapers, and like you said, you did the documentary. It probably helped a lot as a writer because you're collecting different little elements and different things as you're kind of traveling along in these different avenues. And so now that you're back, you know, to where you started, being an author, you've probably gotten a lot more ideas from doing all those different things.
I have. I've gotten a lot of ideas. I've been exposed to different, you know, portions of the business. And it's good to know the business side of publishing, or the business side of trying to get something out there, because the creative side, we know we can just sit in one place and be creative or
all day
long. But to get your work out there is the business side, and that's the side I learned from the print media side, querying, understanding that you must query, and if somebody, you got to pitch the story to someone and hopefully make them want to ask for it or want to read more, and that's challenging, and also helps you to deal with rejection and all of those kind of things.
Big.
So,
how do you deal with reviews when you put a book out? I know that's one thing that authors like sit at home and they're so anxious. How are my readers going to feel about my stories? How are you when you get to reading your reviews? Are you nervous?
Usually not anymore, and I used to be, because an author, no matter how poised we may seem or how much we may tend to think we know, we're very insecure. Because when you put your work out there to the world for them to criticize, you have some kind of insecurity about it.
Right.
For me, it has been that way, because you want people to like it. But I got one review that was not so good, and you know, at first, the first time I heard it, I read it, and I was like, okay, really, who is? You know, but at the end of the day, everything is subjective. You might like something and you may not like it, but I believe that there's an audience for anybody's work. So no matter what you do, there is an audience for you. So at that moment, she read my book, she did not like it, then that's fine. I mean, but there were so many other people that did love it. So it sort of, you know,
Do you
didn't
ever
make a
study
difference.
them for like constructive criticism, and do you kind of learn from them? Have you ever looked at a review that wasn't so good, but you sat back and kind of took it in and said, you know what, okay, maybe they're right on that one point. Maybe I'll take that into account when I'm writing my next story.
Usually not.
No.
Not for reviews, but I usually
Okay.
do it when I go to book clubs. And the book clubs will, you know, because they have you one-on-one. And most times, the book club members have your attention. They're going to tell you what they didn't like, how you developed the character wasn't developed well enough for them. They're going to tell you some things, and I sort of take whatever they say as very constructive, because I know then there's some seriousness behind it.
And those are
I
your
know
readers.
and those are my true readers. And those are the people that's willing to, like, just tell me about what they think I should have done better. And as a writer, I always want to be a better writer. You know, I never think that I am good at what I do. I think I'm okay, but I think I can always be a better writer.
Constant learning.
So, yeah, so I spend my time reading good stuff because I want to be better at this. And, you know, it's a lesson learned. So I'm learning as I go along.
Okay. So you talked about your readers criticizing your characters and everything. So how is it for you dealing with character development? Do you find that something to be difficult, or like where do you pick up your characters? How do you come up with them?
For one thing, I'm pretty observant. Even though I may be talking, I'm observing. And my character usually, most of my characters are people that I know in some form, or people that I care a lot about.
Okay.
I tend to base my characters on people that have come through my life at some point and whom I had a lot of respect for. Even though I may write the character as somebody who is mean and ruthless, I mean, just not the ideal person, but that person's either that name or something about that character that in my heart is something really good.
Okay.
It's crazy, you know, I have a way of switching back and forth, but that's how I develop my characters.
Okay.
And most of the things that the characters are, or most of the things that they do, are based on people that I've been either associated with or know, you know.
Okay.
I may have not been close to them, but I may have admired them from afar, or something about them. And
I think that's a great way to come up with your characters, though, because when you kind of know your character better personally, or it's your mother or your best friend or your sister, it makes it easier for you to develop that character because you really know them. It's not someone that you just made up in your head. It's like, you know, I know this woman or this man. So I always think it's very interesting when authors come up with their characters and to see how they work them into their book. And it's probably funny to you, like you said, if you did base the character off of a family member or someone you know, do they ever come back to you and say, after I read your book, that person kind of sounds like me?
nobody's ever said that but one
No, they never
girlfriend.
pick
I
up
have
on
one
it?
girlfriend, Kay, and I put her name out there because she's been my friend since the kindergarten.
Oh.
Kay always, whenever I'm writing something, she thinks I'm writing about her.
Every writer I think has
Yeah.
that person.
She swears out, oh, why did you put that? And honestly, she's not on my mind at all when I'm writing. And I wouldn't write about her anyways, but like that, you know. But she's always thinking that somebody in that book, one of the guys
You're
is
referring to
either
her.
her boyfriend, her husband, or was one of her boyfriends, her husband, or it's her. And
It's not.
she's so far away from the truth, but I let her believe whatever she wants to
Hey,
believe.
but then again, that can kind of be good. You want your readers to, your books to be relatable. So maybe she felt like one of the characters was speaking to her
Every
life.
book is about her. I mean, every book, children's book, is her. So
Okay.
you got to understand there's always somebody. But no, usually the people I try to be very sensitive to my friends and family. So I'm not going to write about them, their personal lives in my books, because what they tell me that's personal is
Their
personal.
personal business.
Yes.
All right. Well, we are going to take a quick break. and we will be right back with Miss Ruth Watson.
Thank you.
September is National Preparedness Month. Every September, NPM encourages Americans to prepare for emergencies in their homes, businesses, and communities. And because this year marks the 10th anniversary of the September 11th attacks, this year's theme is A Time to Remember, A Time to Prepare. Here at CAUTV, we recognize the importance of National Preparedness Month. Get a kit, make a plan, be informed.
And we're back with author Mrs. Ruth P. Watson. It was very nice talking to you in the first segment, a lot about your character development and you taking reviews from your readers. I want to get into a little bit about the actual story of Blackberry Days of Summer and the plot. Kind of paint us a picture without giving us the whole scoop.
Well, Blackberry Days of Summer is a book written about 3 women who has a certain bit of ambition of their own and 1 male. And this man comes into, he finagles his way into their lives. Okay. And at first it's very positive for most of them, for 2 of them, but it turns to be turned into something totally, confusing. He lacks character in some form to some of them. But then there's one of the ladies that really love him. So he takes a place in everybody's life.
So is he in a love triangle with the 3?
Well, he's not in a love triangle. Just say he is a womanizer of his own sort. And so at some point he ends up dead. There's a murder. Yikes. And each one of the women are suspects in his murder. Now, why they're suspects, he's pissed off a lot of people. He didn't just piss off them, but they're suspects in his murder. And from that point on, the story unravels. And you get to see each character in a different light. And then Blackberry's written from 2 points of view. From the points of view of Carrie, one chapter would be Carrie, the next chapter would be Pearl, and then back and forth, and then I weave them together at the very end.
Okay, so you have kind of 3 main characters in there. The 3 women, they're all kind of mains in the story. Okay, so the guy, I know his name is Herman because I read a couple chapters of it. And like you said, he's kind of like this guy that nobody likes. Well, these 3 women clearly have an interest in him, but you say that a lot of people in the town, they don't really favor him. Where did Herman come from? Where did you come up with his character?
Herman comes from, every man has a Herman in him, I think. And every woman loves a Herman, whether she admits it or not. I had an argument about that in a book club, but I'll throw that out there because you're always intrigued by the edgy person or
your opposite.
Yeah, sometimes you're opposite. It's sometimes just the fact that you might have, women just tend to be mesmerized by the charisma of a street guy. Herman is that street guy.
The bad boy.
The bad boy kind of attitude. Yeah, that's his demeanor. Okay. So, and he's sort of mysterious too, and everybody like a mystery. So he is the bad guy, but he knows how to pull a woman in. He has charisma, and that can get you a lot of places, especially thinking about the time period, early 1900s, in rural Virginia. So you're not exposed to this type of person. So he comes into their lives, and his character is based on probably everybody I know. I mean, the good and the bad and the ugly. And
every person kind of embodies
but
those characteristics.
Yeah, but you would hope that it wouldn't be the dominant character in anybody's life. But that's where Herman came from.
Okay. So I guess what were some difficulties you had while you were writing the book? I know every writer kind of runs into their roadblocks, not necessarily writer's block, but a roadblock in your creativity of putting the chapters together, kind of building your storyline. What was something that was difficult for you?
I don't think any of it was difficult. I think the challenge there may have been some challenges in trying to make sure you got as much as I could into the story to build the characters so that you could identify with one of the characters. And to do that, sometimes the book is really long, and I had to cut the book down like 30,000 words for a mainstream publisher, because typically when you're a first-time author being published by a mainstream publisher like Simon and Schuster, they don't want you to write a new author to come out with a 120,000 word book. They want you to write something 70, 80,000 words.
Something like?
Yeah, because it's cheaper to publish, for one thing. And they're taking a risk on you anyways.
Because you're new, you're the rookie.
Yes.
They got to let you get your feet wet and see what you're capable of.
And they're going to make their money. And the publishing is a capitalistic society, so they got to make their money back.
Very much so. And
the way they make their money back is to, publish small. It doesn't cost as much to publish. Keep it, in my case, I got a paperback deal as opposed to a hardcover deal, which is, to me, a deal is a deal. Because I know so many people want to be where I am, and I'm so thankful to God for opening that door for me. So
I mean, really, it's the price. The hardbacks cost more than the paperbacks.
And
so
it'll get to a point
you're
where
still out, though. Like
right.
you said, you're thankful to even be given that opportunity.
Exactly.
I was going to ask you that, too. What is, how there's new things out there, the Kindles and the e-books. What do you prefer most? Are you an e-reader, or do you prefer the old school paperbacks?
Well, I prefer old school paperbacks. I prefer old school books, period, over e-reading, because we need libraries. And in the African American community especially, we need to be able to refer back to what we're reading. We need to, for retention purposes, you retain so much more when you read it in a book. You go back to the book and read it over and over again, as opposed to e-reader. There's a study to support that. I can't tell you what the study is, but I've read it before. And two, we're closing down all the major bookstores.
Yeah, it's a business.
I just would love to see us, have a copy of a book as opposed to always downloading everything. There's nothing wrong with technology, don't get me wrong, but for retention, for students learning, and I think it's important to have hard copies of books.
I like paperbacks and actually reading, as, opposed to ebooks and reading on my iPod, because I find that it hurts my eyes. The light, after a while, it's like draining for your eyes. So I often always carry my paperbacks.
But for convenience, we know ebook works best.
I think
convenience.
With carrying, and a lot of people, when they travel, they like their iPad or their Kindle or their tablet. So I think it has a lot to do with weight and not wanting to carry so much. But like you said, there's nothing wrong with going to the library or curling up with a good paperback book.
When I finished Blackberry Days of Summer, I left you thinking, like, what happened to Herman Cain?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, was there a cliffhanger,
Did Herman Cain, who did that? So I had to write a sequel.
Okay.
And that's where An Elderberry
Summer came from.
An Elderberry Fall came in.
Elderberry Fall, I'm sorry.
That's okay, I got it.
Blackberry Days of Summer.
You know what? I got the berries and the seasons in there. So I know it can be a little confusing, but Elderberry Fall now, so.
Right. My apologies.
No.
I know that you also work with Zane. She was your publisher.
Oh, yeah.
How was that?
Zane is brilliant, first of all. And anybody that knows her movie's coming out, Addicted, should be out October 10th. She's written all sorts of books, mostly erotica. But she has an imprint with Simon & Schuster. And you don't get offered an imprint unless you're selling millions of books. So that's how many books she sells for them. And to have an imprint with a mainstream publisher, that's a big deal.
Huge.
And so Zane gets to choose who she wants to publish under Atria Books. And she chose my book as historical fiction.
That was probably a big honor.
It's a great honor. I think I may be her only historical fiction novelist.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, I think we have one other guy sort of goes back and forth, but he goes from contemporary and in his book back and forth. But I think I'm her only historical fiction novelist right now. And,
okay, well, there you go. You'll have your imprint in history definitely with her being her, first.
Yeah, and she's a wonderful person. She's a good person to know. She seems shy, very nice.
You wouldn't even think or begin to think that she was shy from her stories. That's funny.
And you can tell she's always thinking, and she's super intelligent. She's brilliant. She really is. And she's always creating, always trying to do something different and bigger. So, and for me, it's been a blessing to have her in my corner and to have her as my publisher.
That was really great that you could establish that type of relationship with another author. I know that.
I didn't know her prior to this. I had read her stuff, but, through an agent who queried my project to her, she liked the project, and that's how I ended up with the relationship with her.
Okay. So, you've worked with Zane, you have done, you've bounced from children's books to print media, back to your books. What is your favorite, one of your favorite authors or a favorite book of yours?
Probably my favorite book is The Color Purple.
I think we all love that book and that movie.
I loved Alice Walker, the way she depicted that story. And see, when I first read the story, I was reading the story and I said, oh, she stole my story. This is years ago.
Oh, wow.
I was writing. I had a story in my head.
Similar?
Something similar.
Oh, wow.
And I said, oh, she stole all my ideas. But I love Alice Walker's The Color Purple. But I read everybody's stuff. I love Toni Morrison. I love Kim Edwards. I love Bernice McFadden.
Oh, yeah.
Oh God, I'm just trying to say McKinney Whetstone from Philly. I gave her a ride one time. I love all of their stories. She wrote Tumbling. I like different types of books, and I like good books. So I try to read novelists that I think are great writers so that I can increase my skills and improve on my skills.
Okay. So where can we find you? What are your social networks, and where can we find your books?
Well, both of my books, from my understanding now, Blackberry's in Targets and Walmarts, Barnes & Nobles, Amazon, all the online medias, any place that you can order a book online. So is an Elderberry Fall. An Elderberry Fall, which just came out, it's not in mass market yet, because the mass market are these small books that you see on the lots of airlines and places in the airline bookstores. But you can get them at any of those stores. And if you go into a bookstore and you can't find it, just ask them to order it for you. And you can find me online at ruthpwatson.com. But also you can, if you wanted to email me, you can email me at ruth@ruthpwatson.com.
Okay, great. And how often do you answer your emails?
Every day.
Okay.
Every day.
So your readers
I've had some emails today, but I haven't answered them yet, but I will when I go home. I answer my emails. I don't get so many that I can't answer them myself. And it's a personal touch. I want to, know what my readers are thinking.
That's great that you can write back to them and take out the time to be personable with your readers.
Yeah, I want to be able to do that. I don't ever want to, feel like I'm so far away from the readers, because that's what I write about, people and the things that we're doing.
Thank you so much for coming out to be with us today, and good luck with your new book.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And this has been another episode of Potpourri. Again, I'm Crystal Brockton, and we'll see you all next time.